to call the inaugural meeting of the Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District to order. As has been customary, every year I get that privilege once a year to call the meeting to order. And before we go into the elections, we do have that special resolution that we have to consider. So I'm just going to ask Kristen to put that up on the screen. So it should be appearing there in front of you that due to the provincial health order issued on November 19th, that the Fraser Valley Regional District conduct meetings without the members of the public present in the boardroom, and that the Fraser Valley Regional District continue to promote openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability by webcasting and archiving board meetings online, allowing members of the public to write, email, call in, or appear by Zoom with questions, and promoting public participation at meetings through social media channels. So looking for a mover and a seconder on that item.
So moved.
Moved by Director Fazio, seconded by Director Mercer. All those in favor?
Aye.
It passes. All right, so we'll just get you to stop sharing that screen. That's awesome, thank you. So to facilitate the election of the chair of the Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District, I would ask for a first call of nominations for chair.
I would like to nominate Director Raymond.
Thank you, Director Pranger. Director Raymond, do you accept this nomination?
Yes, I do.
All right, and are there other nominations for the position of chair of the Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District? For a second time, are there any nominations for the position of chair for the Regional Hospital District? And for a third and final time, are there any nominations for the position of chair of the Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District? Hearing none, I now close the nominations and declare that we will not be holding an election, and confirm that Director Raymond is elected chair of the Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District.
Thank you.
So at this time, I would ask that Director Raymond take the position of chair and chair the rest of the meeting, but for the remainder of the elections, I would seek direction to facilitate the election of the acting chair. Is that all right, Director or Chair Raymond?
Yes, it is. Carry on, please.
Thank you. So I will now call for nominations for the position of acting chair for the Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District.
I would like to
Nominate Ross Siemens.
Okay. First, I'll recognize Director Ross.
I would like to nominate Sylvia Pranger.
Director Pranger, do you accept this nomination?
I do.
And I didn't hear who the other person was.
Director Lowen here. I'd like to nominate Director Ross Siemens.
Thank you, Director Lowen. Director Siemens, do you accept this nomination?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations for the position of acting chair of the Regional Hospital District? For a second time, are there any other nominations for the position of acting chair for the Regional Hospital District? And for a third and final time, are there any other nominations for the position of acting chair of the Regional Hospital District? Hearing none, I now close the nominations and declare that there will be an election, and confirm that both Director Siemens and Director Pranger will run for the acting chair position. The procedures of the Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District allow for each of the nominated individuals to address the board for 1 minute. So Director Pranger, you were nominated first. You have the floor.
Thank you. Oops, sorry. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to run for vice chair. I have been interested in health governance for a long time. Was on the Chilliwack Hospital Board, and was vice chair of the Fraser Valley Healthcare I don't know what it was called at the time. The name kept changing. I am anxious to work towards bringing the best healthcare to our area, especially in the field of since we are a hospital, to make that the best it can be for our whole region. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Pranger. Director Siemens.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I basically, I guess I'm interested in running simply because I think that there's a lot that we can do as a region, especially when you take a look at our aging care homes in both Chilliwack and Abbotsford. Mission, I think, also has some challenges. And then also up into the regional district, especially when you take a look at some of the outlying areas. So I guess my focus would be hopefully on governance and working strongly. We've got a lot of cooperation with regionally, and I think we need to really focus on getting those care homes upgraded. We take a look at the Bradley Center. We take a look at the challenges we've had in Abbotsford with the MSA lands. We've got some real opportunities, I believe, now that we have our former hospital board chair now being on the government side. I think we can.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we have reached the minute limit. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Riley. So as you all know, we are conducting this meeting in a completely virtual environment. And so we do not have the ability to do our customary vote with paper ballots. However, you may cast your vote by texting or calling our Chief Election Officer, Jamie Riley, at the number that was circulated to you by email today. Ms. Riley will then collect the votes and report the results back to us. And while she is receiving the votes, we will just take a short pause and we will come back to you with those results. So, and if you don't have the access to that number, you can always text or call me as well.
Can you please give us your number? I don't have either one.
Sure. Was that Director Falk?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Oh,
I will send it to you right now.
Thank you.
I have your number.
Thank you.
Amy speaking.
There, Director Falk, I just sent you the number to text. I hope.
Got it. Thank you.
Perfect.
You remember he's died, right?
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for your patience and how we have to conduct things in this environment. It's my pleasure to announce that Director Pranger has been elected as acting chair for the Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District. So,
Thank you.
Chair Raymond, you now have an opportunity to provide your remarks as chair of the Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District Board.
Thank you, and thank you to the board. Congratulations to Director Pranger as well. The last little while since I've been chair has been very interesting. One of the purposes that I'm looking for is in improving the relationship between our board and the Fraser Valley Health region. Part of that is that when issues come forward that are going to affect a municipality, I want that municipality to be involved in those issues. Not just at our table here at the board table, but their staff and their people as well. I also firmly believe that anything that occurs within our regional district affects the other areas as well. And so we have to be very aware of that. I had a very good call with the Fraser Health a while back, and I think that we can add to that. And I see some really good things coming out of it in working with them. Again, thank you all very much for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So now we'll look for approval of the agenda, addenda, and late items.
Moved by Director Facio, seconded by
Davidson.
Director Davidson. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion is carried.
Next item is 6.1. We have the draft Fraser Valley Regional Hospital District Board meeting minutes of September 17th, 2020.
So moved.
Moved by Director
Seconded, Adamson.
seconded by Director Adamson. Any errors or omissions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? The motion is carried.
Moving down to reports by directors, Mr. Chair.
Have any of the directors got some reports to put in? I know there's some stuff coming up in camera for some of, but anyone here would like to say a few words or chime in on something? Now is your opportunity. Hearing none, we'll move on then.
Okay, so moving down to item 9, which is public question period for items relevant to the agenda. As has been our practice during this pandemic, we've encouraged email submissions to info@fvrd.ca, which could be received before 1 p.m. on November 23rd. We also have invited the public to attend live on Zoom, by phone, or through the video conferencing. I do understand that we have several members of the public who are on the line here. They could possibly be here for the regular board meeting, but just opening up to public questions if any would like to proceed.
So if we have any members of the public who would like to ask a question for questions relevant to the agenda, they can just click the raise hand function to alert staff that you're interested in asking a question. And it would appear that we don't have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Riley.
Thank you.
We move down to item 10, Mr. Chair, which is a resolution to close the meeting.
Moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Ross. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion is carried.
And we will recess the hospital district meeting and move straight over to the inaugural meeting of the Fraser Valley Regional District Board of Directors. And once again, it's my pleasure to call the inaugural meeting to order. The first item, of course, is the motion with relevance to conducting this meeting electronically. We have to go through that again. So if I could just have Kristen put that resolution up on the screen for you. And there's the motion for your consideration that due to the provincial health order issued on November 19th, that in the Fraser Valley Regional District conduct meetings without the members of the public present in the boardroom, and that the Fraser Valley Regional District continue to promote openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability by webcasting and archiving board meetings online, allowing members of the public to write, email, call in, or appear by Zoom with questions, and promoting public participation at meetings through social media channels. Is there a mover and a seconder?
Moved.
Raymond.
Moved by Director Popov, seconded by Director Raymond. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Item carries. And now we will move into the election for the board chair. I'll just get my script here. So to facilitate this election, I would like to ask for a first call of nominations for chair of the regional district.
I nominate Jason.
Director Clute, thank you very much. Director Lum, do you accept this nomination?
I do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For a second time, are there any nominations for the position of chair of the regional district? For a third and final time, are there any other nominations for the position of chair of the regional district? Hearing none, I now close the nominations and declare that there will not be an election, and confirm that Chair Lum is elected chair of the Fraser Valley Regional District. So at this time, again, I would ask that Director Lum take the position of chair and chair the rest of the meeting, but with your allowance to direct staff to facilitate the election of the vice chair.
Please.
I nominate Patricia Ross.
Thank you very much, Director Pranger. So Director Ross, do you accept this nomination?
I do, thank you.
Are there any other nominations? For a second time, are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair for the regional district? And for a third and final time, are there any other nominations for the position of vice chair of the regional district? Hearing none, I now close the nominations and declare that there will not be an election, and confirm that Director Ross is elected vice chair of the Fraser Valley Regional District.
Thank you.
So Chair Lum, you now have an opportunity to provide your remarks as chair.
Thank you, Ms. Kinnaman, and thank you very much to all of my colleagues on the board. Thank you for your patience as we've all moved through this very trying year. I almost hesitate to, what we were talking earlier, Ms. Kinnaman and I almost hesitate to wonder what 2021 has in store for us here. But nevertheless, this is an incredibly hardworking board, a group of individuals that have all given over and above in terms of their time and attention, assisting all of us as we move through, again, this pandemic and a very challenging second wave. My comments will be very brief. I want to thank you for the honor of being reelected as chair, but I want to really thank all of the frontline essential workers, healthcare workers who continue to do amazing work in this province in an extremely challenging time. As we move to attempt to keep the economy moving, and as we work alongside the newly sworn in MLAs, that I believe that's happening this week, and people are getting sworn in from their living rooms. So everything looks very different, but we have our challenge ahead of us, but we also have great opportunities here at the Fraser Valley Regional District. We have some big asks to bring forward to our other orders of government, both the provincial and federal partners. And I have moving into this next term with a great amount of optimism that we will get a lot of very good things done, things checked off our checklist here at the Fraser Valley Regional District. And it will be because of the hard work of the directors and our amazing staff. So thank you very much for the honor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So looking for approval of the agenda, addenda, and late items.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Facio and seconded by Director Popov. Any discussion on the agenda? Any additions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed if any? The item carries. Next item.
Next item is 6.1. We have Dr. Martha Dow, who is the Director of Community Health and Socialization Innovation for the University of the Fraser Valley. We have Martha on the line to give a presentation.
Dr. Dow, welcome and thank you for your patience as you got to see a very up close and personal look at our election process here through the hospital district and the FERD. But thank you for being here this evening.
No, thank you. It was very refreshing to see a smooth election. So thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here. I want to be very attentive to time. I know you're all very busy, but the excitement that comes with me often talking about chassis. So I wanted to do a couple of things. So thanks again for having me. I wanted to introduce chassis, which is the Community Health and Social Innovation Hub at the University of the Fraser Valley. And then I wanted to talk a bit about some potential ways that perhaps the board and your various communities might be able to connect and how we could support the communities. I was struck by a number of things that have been said already tonight. In fact, given what Chassis is doing and how we might be able to connect. So first, a couple of things. I've been living in Abbotsford for the last 27 years. I'm a sociologist by trade, and all of my career has been around community engaged work. And that's important to mention, I think, because I was asked by our president to be the director of the new hub. And I would argue that UFV, like many universities, has not done enough to really engage with our communities. And I think it's not from a lack of desire, but I think we need to do much, much better around this. And I was struck by Chair Raymond's comments in terms of connections to Fraser Health and community, sort of getting really nimble, responsive attention to the needs. So Chassis came about from the community, and I think that's really a critical part of our story. We had the divisions of family practice in Abbotsford, Mission, and Chilliwack come to the university and basically say, we think we have to have a stronger relationship with the university. We need better, we need evidence-based approaches to healthcare and social community, individual well-being. And so we absolutely agreed. On April 1st, the hub opened. We have a physical space on campus, and we worked in that space until the most recent public health orders, and we worked under COVID protocols. We currently have 13, including myself, as part of the team. And what's important about that, I think, is 11 of them are either current students or graduates of the University of the Fraser Valley. And I think that's such a powerful symbol to students right now, particularly in these times when they're wondering, what am I going to do when I graduate, et cetera. So that's exciting for us. Importantly, our 5 founding partners, if you will, are those 3 divisions of family practice, as well as Fraser Health and the First Nations Health Authority. So we have MOUs with those 5. And then importantly, what happened was the division stepped up with $300,000 as seed money to get the hub going. They really believed in the concept, so they went to, and what was interesting when I had a brief moment to kind of corner Minister Dix at a fundraiser and talk to him about Chassis. What he was struck with, which I think is important, is that 3 different communities brought their resources together. They each used 100% of their innovation funds for the year to bring to the initiative. So I think that's very exciting. Wanted to give you just a few examples of some of the things that we have going on in the hopes that that might spark your thinking about possibilities. Importantly, we have a research assistant development program. That's where we partner with industry, community partners, and internal partners to the university, where they can sponsor research assistants who are undergraduate students who will work dedicated to their particular issues. We have partnered most recently, MyTax. It's a nonprofit, works with 6,000 companies and 70 universities across Canada and with partnerships in the States. And they provide internships. Importantly, prior to COVID, they did not work with municipalities in terms of the government connection, but they do during COVID, and that will likely be extended. And they also didn't work with undergrads, and so UFV was not in a position to access. So we currently have proposals for 3 internships that are in their final stage of approval with MyTax. That's really exciting. When I think about FERD and industry connections and sort of that connection of community health and economic health, I think that's exciting. The BC Centre for Disease Control reached out to Chassis to start mobilizing their data. And with a very generous offer, they started to curate a database that would provide greater access to both StatsCan and then health data that's collected, so that communities could come to Chassis with particular issues. Most recently, we were asked about exposure risk in communities, and could we use that data to leverage and support healthcare decisions in a particular community. So that, I think, is the start of a very exciting relationship. Got a lot of COVID projects. I mean, at the federal level, we're looking at, we looked at traveler and transference of information from physicians to travelers. We also have a proposal for migrant farm workers, obviously really a critical issue in our region as well, and long-term care as well. Doing work in long-term care, we've been approached around everything from the use of artificial intelligence, social robotics, around social connectedness, but also we're working with a company on technology that would help think about traffic patterns. So when there's a public health order and a shutdown, many of the facilities weren't able to fully actualize the orders simply because of their physical plant. So how do various healthcare workers move about a facility? How might they be able to move differently to provide for for safer practices? Nationally, we've worked on an Indigenous residential fire risk project that we finished for the Aboriginal Firefighters Association of Canada. And again, I say that to say both quantitative and qualitative work we have our team working on. Stalo approached us, Stalo Services approached us to partner on a project on grief and work coming out of COVID. And we're just in the final stages of that, and that's going to Work BC. I wanted to mention youth. Certainly we've got a number of things going on, most recently in Chilliwack with a couple of organizations looking at everything from food security to homelessness, missing persons, and that connects both with youth and older adults. Skill development for vulnerable and marginalized youth, and mental health. We were approached by an agency that basically needed a needs assessment around seeking more funding around clinicians for referrals. Just wrapping up, I'd say we have I noticed the attention around our outdoor activity and recreation, obviously. And we have a number of projects. Most recently, Dr. Iris Lesser did something around a project around South Asian women and outdoor exercise, which was very interesting, picked up, talked about on the CBC a bit. And then climate action. We most recently put in our proposal with respect to Gladwin Pond and Fraser River and microplastics, and had the city of Abbotsford stepped in very nimbly in the spirit of Chassis to provide some letters of support, as the school district did. So there's I know I'm just talking at you, and I feel really sad that I can't be in a room with you, and someday I look forward to hosting you at the Hub. But I wanted to give you a sense of the breadth of the capacity around different methods, about most keenly the collaborative approach, right? We're not doing this for the university to publish articles. We're doing this to be responsive to our communities and have more meaningful relationships. So what does that mean in terms of the work that all of you do, both on this board and then in your various communities, obviously? I mentioned to Jennifer, we have an external advisory committee that will be meeting for the first time. in the next month or two. And we would love to have representation from this board, someone who we've got so many communities represented here. So that's a very specific ask. More generally, I noticed the projects that you've been partnered on. We would love if there's any thing that we can do to support your exploration of issues in your specific communities or collectively. Certainly the connections around entities like Fraser Health and more specific community-based information is something we're very excited about doing. So if there are things that we can help, and connected to that is knowledge mobilization. Doesn't do us any good if we do all this work and then the communities aren't able to access it. So we're spending a lot of time, thinking, and resources in terms of visualizing data and visualizing sort of the reports and the information that we gather. So those are some of the things we're doing. I hope that wasn't too much just talking. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Daw. I really appreciate your presentation, and I've been kind of a fan from afar of this project. I've got some colleagues who are very aware of what's happening, and I've always said that we are so fortunate to have a regional university here in the Fraser Valley, and we don't often enough look at how we can leverage that relationship and that research and the work that's happening in many of the projects that each of our respective organizations undertake. So thank you so much for your presentation. I just look to board directors if you had any questions for Dr. Daw. Dr. Shahal.
Thank you, Chair Lam. Welcome, Martha. How are you doing?
Very well. Nice to see you.
Martha, you termed something, was it access mobility or information mobility? And that struck a chord with me because oftentimes there's so much good work that's being done out here, but it's hard to hear everything and it's hard to access information from universities, organizations. And I'm wondering if that in itself could be something that could be looked at. And what are your thoughts about that? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think really critical to what we're talking about in terms of knowledge mobilization, I think is the reference. So we're looking at everything from more meaningful use around social media to on website, people being able to hop in and actually use the data that we've already curated at no cost. So if someone wanted to come in for publicly accessible data, but that we've formed into databases, they could come. And Kelly, you know, I mean, there were students that are engaged in research and community researchers who don't have that access. So we're looking at that, as well as sorting out how we could present report information where people don't have to, you know, kind of read the entire report to know if they want to sort of engage with that researcher, et cetera. And visualizing, that's the other thing. Certainly with dashboards these days, those allow people to get a little bit of an entry into the particular issue and then move forward. So we're looking at the development of those as well. The CDC data will be a bit of a pilot for us on that we're excited about.
Great.
Thank you. Sorry, I just want to.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to comment on that. So that in itself is very innovative because oftentimes studies are very, you know, it's your property and the sharing is not so much there. So that in itself is innovative. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Siemens.
Thank you. I really appreciated Dr. Dow's presentation and struck a chord with very similar to what we're doing with the Homelessness Action Committee, which is now called the Hub of the Fraser Valley Community Entity. And I just wondered, how can we engage? Dina K. Beno is our staff member, and we have a tripartite agreement with Van City, and then Luma Native Housing Society, and then the City of Abbotsford. And through that project, we are actually going to be looking at reconciliation as part of our housing housing affordability and how we're also reaching out to our homeless population. And I just wondered, how can we engage, because a lot of what you're doing, leveraging innovation, all of those things are very similar to what we're doing with the Homeless Hub. Just wondered if you had any comments or how would we go about making that connection?
Yeah, so Dina and I have talked a fair bit, and then as she sort of navigated and was able to, I started working with Help Seeker a little bit in sort of those more immediate needs. So I think we'd be very pleased in any way that we can support, and Dina's certainly well aware of the hub, and we kind of went down a bit of a road in looking at some of that data, and then I think she needed to kind of fulfill some of those pieces that she was working with Help Seeker. So I'd be pleased to talk more about that, absolutely. And you hit on such an important point. We shouldn't be reinventing, right? We really need to do a better job, and the university is the major culprit of this, right? We got to do better, and that's why I'm excited about this at this point.
Any other questions? Director Raymond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Dr. Dow, for your presentation. I've heard of the organization, but don't know of it that well. And I have full intentions on learning more about it. I can see a great relationship starting here as well in supporting what you're doing and having your support in some of the things that we're looking forward and doing in our entire region. So with that, thank you again. And I look forward to meeting with you again.
I do as well.
Bales?
Yeah, hi, thanks. Thanks for your presentation. I'm glad to hear that people are sort of taking several issues and kind of connecting them. I think we really need to get out of the bubbles as far as information and connect how things impact other things, basically. So one of the things I was thinking of is when they called the pandemic, for instance, a lot of care workers had to stay home with their families, and that kind of impact. Another thing I think about is it'd be nice for the general public and myself. I get frustrated when I hear numbers, but I don't really hear the breakdown on the news. So it would be really nice to have a breakdown on what the numbers mean, because cases quite often can be asymptomatic or as little as a cold or the sniffles, and it'd be nice to have a kind of a general feeling for what the cases mean and the exposures and whether herd immunity might be having any impact. Also, one thing I keep hearing about lately, and I do a lot of studying on my own, is the PCR tests and not being standardized. So people run the cycles at different amounts of cycles for the testing, which has a different impact on the outcome. So it would be nice to know how the BC CDC is running the cycles. I've heard what Ontario's doing, and I've heard what they've done in the States in different places, and it has totally different outcomes on how the case numbers come out. So it would be nice to have a centralized place for people to get information for sure. So I'll leave it at that to start and see what any comments on those things.
I think there's a lot of great specifics that I've noted, and but what I'd say runs across all of your comments, which I think is so essential, is there are so many members of the public that are trying to understand so much information being thrown at them now at COVID. But I think what it's really done is highlighted, lots of issues that have come up where we want to figure out how we can help people to better understand the numbers, the content, what they need to pay attention to, how to understand good sources and sources that maybe they need to pay less attention to. So I think that struck me as a thread that's woven throughout the comments you just made. So thank you for those.
Director Popov, did you have a question?
Well, it's actually more a comment. Thank you, Chair Lum. Just a comment to the doctor, and I think you you and your team are in conversations with a committee that's been formed in Chilliwack around food security and namely the food hub. And I just want to thank you for stepping up to the plate, if you will, and working with us. It's an exciting project that is well underway, and we look forward to getting information through your travels, your folks, to make this a great community project. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
And if I could, well, thank you. And if I could just quickly say, that was a great example where a few agencies came to us, and then we put out the idea of a MyTax partnership, and those individuals were willing to take a little bit of a risk and say, okay, let's structure this around doing that industry partnership. And so leveraging, and what MyTax does, by the way, is match funds. So they will take whatever's $7,500 contribution, they will match that. And the significant portion of that goes to the student RA. So it's a really exciting way for a student to get a really magnificent experience and a wonderful way to have community, university, and industry partnership.
I totally agree. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board directors? Don't see or hear any. So Dr. Dow, again, thank you very much for your time. I know we also have quite a few of our staff team on the line as well. And I guess the challenge over to staff and directors is to look for opportunities to work with Dr. Dow and her team. We often have we have very data rich documents that we create, and I'm in particular interested about some of your comments about visualizing that data in a different way. And I know you have someone on your team who's fairly well known in Chilliwack and who's going to be working on the visual kind of different visualization or visual project specialist. I'm not sure what his exact title is, but I'm very excited about being able to utilize some of or explore some of those partnerships and help the public really be able to digest some of our policy and governance work in perhaps under a different light. So I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunities. And Ms. Kinnaman, I just ask that perhaps we advance the conversation on providing Dr. Dow a representative from this board on her I think her advisory team is what she asked. So let's put that on a future discussion for the board, and we'll look to pull board members for their interest. But
Can I just quickly say thank you all for all that you do. These are very difficult times, and I know that we talk often about the leadership in communities. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. And as exciting as this is, don't feel obligated to have to stay with us for the balance of the meeting, but by all means, you're welcome to.
Thank you.
Always gracious, Mr. Chair. Moving down to 7.1, we have the draft Fraser Valley Regional District Board meeting minutes of October 27th, 2020.
Thank you. That is moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Blue. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor. Opposed if any, the item carries. Next item.
Next item is item 8. We have committee and commission minutes for information and matters arising. There's no motion, but if there were any questions about these draft minutes, we're happy to answer them.
Any questions from board directors on either of those items? I don't see any. Next item.
Next is 9.1. We have the Fraser Valley Regional District Board and Committee Procedures Bylaw number 1600/2020. There's a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. And mover and a seconder, please. This is moved by Director Clute, seconded by Director Raymond. Discussion. Director Bales, did you have a
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is really good to get all the policy on paper and have it well defined. I'm mostly in favor of everything pretty much, except for the minute taking, and I'm still not in favor of anecdotal minutes. But one thing that I will say I'm very in favor of is the 7 days between the agenda coming out and the meeting, although I don't know if it really matters whether it's a Tuesday or a Thursday. It's more the length of time in between the agenda and the meeting time. The reason for that is that delegations, in order to be a delegation, you need to apply 5 working days before a meeting. So for members of the public, it is very helpful to have that extra space of time to be able to know what's on the agenda and then to actually be able to apply as a delegation. So I had a motion exactly like this or similar back in Jerry Kingston days. I think it was about a decade ago. So I'm very in favor of that, but not in favor of the anecdotal minutes. So it would have been nice to have discussed this in EASC, I would say. And I can think of other things that could be added to policy that would be nice, but I suppose we can add things to policy at any time.
Thank you, Director Bales. And yep, this is a culmination of some of the things that are being brought up in terms of addressing them in our procedural bylaw. And I think staff have done a very good job of addressing those, making note of them throughout the year and incorporating them into our procedural bylaw. So any other comments from board directors or questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
Next is 10.1. We have Financial Plan 2020 to 2024 amendments. There's a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. You mover and a seconder. It's moved by Director Stobart and seconded by Director Dickey. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
10.2, we have a grant and aid request from the Hemlock Valley Homeowners Association in Electoral Area C.
Thank you. Director Bales.
Yeah, moved.
That's moved by Director Bales and seconded by Director Adamson. Any discussion? Don't hear any. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
10.3, we have a grant and aid request for Friends of Tapadera Community Group in Electoral Area C.
Thank you.
Moved.
Moved by Director Bales and seconded by
Adamson.
Director Adamson. And discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
10.4 is another grant and aid request for the Cultus Lake Volunteer Fire Department in Electoral Area H.
Thank you.
Move Dixon.
Moved by Director Dixon and seconded by Director Mercer. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Item carries. Next item.
10.5, we have a grant and aid request from the Columbia Valley Volunteer Fire Department, also in Electoral Area H.
Thank you.
Dixon.
Moved by
Second,
Director
Adamson.
Seconded by Director Adamson. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Item carries. Next item.
10.6, we have a grant and aid for the Popcom Volunteer Fire Department in Electoral Area D.
I go out on a limb and say it's moved by Director Dickey.
Moved. Second, Adamson.
Seconded by Director Adamson. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. And next item.
10.7, a grant and aid request for the Popcom Residents Association, also in Electoral Area D.
Move Dickey.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Dickey and seconded by Director Clute. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
Item 11.1, we have the Electoral Areas E and H bylaw update project. There is a fairly lengthy motion for your consideration, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And this is for all?
Correct.
Confirming, that's correct. I mover and a seconder on this item, please.
So moved, Yengar.
Moved by Director Angar, seconded by Director Pranger. And any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if
Aye.
any? Items carry. Next item.
11.2, we have the Fraser Valley Regional District Electoral Area D zoning amendment bylaw number 1502 to facilitate a 4-lot rural residential single-family subdivision of 10304 Agassiz Rosedale Highway in Electoral Area D.
Thank you. This is for EAs.
Stobart, move option 1.
Okay, option 1 is moved by Director Stobart, and a seconder, please.
Adamson.
Director, I saw Director Raymond there with his hand up too. And discussion. Director Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This has been a challenging application for us. The subject property borders on a small neighborhood that arguably is one of the most distinctive, I think, in the Fraser Valley. Those people have been very careful about maintaining the standards in their neighborhood. And a number of those neighbors have spoken out against the application. A number of the neighbors also have indicated their support. So it hasn't been an easy decision, but the developer has agreed to maintain the form and character of the surrounding neighborhood. He's agreed to protect what trees he can on his property, and he's agreed to construct a sound wall to buffer the whole neighborhood from a nearby highway. So for this reason in balance, I find that I will vote in favor of this application moving forward.
Thank you, Director Dickey. Any other comments from board directors? I don't see anyone indicating they wish to speak. I'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
11.3, we have the Fraser Valley Regional District Lake Eric Water System Capital Construction Service Area Amendment Bylaw number 1538.
Thank you.
Moved.
Moved by Director
Bales.
Bales and seconded by Director Dixon. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
11.4, we have the North Side Garbage Disposal Service Area Amendment Bylaw numbers 1595 and 1596.
Thank you.
Move Bales.
Moved by Director Bales, seconded by Director Davidson. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
11.5, we have the Fraser Valley Regional District Electoral Area D Integrated Water System Service Area Amendment Bylaw number 1602.
Dickey moves.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Dickey, seconded by Director Facio. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
Next item is 11.6. We have the Subdivision and Development Servicing Amendment Bylaw number 1603. Mr. Chair, I believe that Director Dickey was going to speak at the outset of this one.
Thank you. Director Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to declare a conflict of interest on this item. I currently have a subdivision application before the FVRD, which may be impacted by this. So I'll step out. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Dickey. I will look for a mover and a seconder on this item. It's moved by Director Stobart, seconded by Director Raymond. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries.
If we could just pause for a second to allow staff to tell Director Dickey he can return to the room. There we go.
There he is. Okay.
Thank you. So then we'll move down to item 11.7, which is the North Side Community Park Service Area Amendment Bylaw number 1604 and 1605.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder on this item.
Stobart, move.
It's moved by Director Stobart and seconded by Director Robb. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
Next item is item 12, and this is where we have our permits, and I believe you have a script, Mr. Chair.
Yes, let me get my DVP speaking notes up. Monday, I will
Well, it's always a little more challenging electronically, isn't it?
Thank you. And pursuant to Part 14, Division 9 of the Local Government Act, this is the opportunity for the FERD Board to hear from the public regarding the development variance permits listed on the agenda for this meeting. Anyone who believes that their interests are affected by the proposed application will be given an opportunity to speak. If you have verbal comments with respect to these development variance permits and you're joining us by Zoom on a computer or a smart device, I'd please ask that you use the raise hand function. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be asked to unmute yourself. If you're joining us on Zoom by phone, please press *9, and this will notify staff that you wish to speak. When you're prompted to unmute yourself, please press *6. Those of you wishing to speak are asked to begin your presentation by providing your name and address, which will be recorded and form part of our official record. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes and confine your remarks to the application at hand. Ms. Kinnaman, our first item, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have item 12.1, which is development variance permit 2020-17 to vary the maximum height requirement for an accessory building at 3900 Columbia Valley Road in electoral area H. And I will note that we do have 4 members of the public on the line at the moment. So if one of them wishes to speak to this item, they can raise their hand. Might have to go to the second screen, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And now would be the opportunity for anyone from the public who wishes to speak to our first development variance permit item, 12.1. Please indicate by the methods that I outlined in my earlier comments. For a first time, and staff, if you see anyone raising their hand, if you would let me know as well. I don't see anyone on my screen at this time, so I'll call for a second time. Any members of the public who wish to speak to this item, please indicate.
I believe I'm hearing from staff that one person did raise their hand. So let me just scroll through here.
Okay.
Ms. Riley, are you able to see on your end or?
I don't.
So it looks like we have a Scott Lyon who has indicated that they wish to speak. So Mr. Lyon, if you're on the line, if you can unmute yourself and announce yourself and state your address.
I believe I'm unmuted. I am the resident homeowner at the address above, and I'd just like to take the time to thank the staff at the regional district for working with me through this process and helping me submit a plan that I think is going to add to the form and character of my house. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't see if board directors have any questions through to Mr. Lyon. I don't believe so. And looks like you're off the hook, sir. And any further comments from members of the public on this item?
It would appear that that's it for this DVP, Mr. Chair.
Okay, that's the extent of our public participation. So board directors, what's your pleasure? Need a mover and a seconder.
Dixon moves the staff recommendation to
Adamson second.
Okay, so that's moved by Director Dixon, seconded by Director Adamson. Any further discussion?
Dixon.
Go ahead, Director Dixon.
Just this one, it's I recognize it is quite high. However, the applicant did a good job of connecting with the neighbors and appears to have support. And I know the staff have been working hard with them as well. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Director Dixon. Any comment? Any other comments from directors? I don't hear any. Are you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next item is 12.2. We have development variance permit 2020-19 to vary the maximum height requirement for an accessory building at 532 Park Drive in electoral area H. And I will remind the board that there was some correspondence received on this item, and it was circulated to you by email.
And thank you, Ms. Kinnaman. And if there are any comments from the public regarding this development variance permit, please indicate by raising your hand. And for a second time, and I'll just quickly check in with staff, Ms. Riley, Ms. Kinnaman. I don't see any other.
Don't see any at this time.
hands raised.
Not at this time.
Okay. So we do not have any public comments on this item. What's the board's wishes? And we're in a seconder.
Dixon, move the recommendation.
Thank you. And seconded by
Angar.
Director Engar. And discussion on the item.
Dixon.
Go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, I recognize that this person did begin his project without the proper approvals in place. And I know the staff have worked with them and that he has removed one of his other applications as far as coverage of, too much coverage of his lot. And while we certainly don't want to encourage people to do something first and then kind of ask forgiveness, I do understand that the fees will be higher. and so just really do want to encourage people to, if you want to be doing some work on your land, to get the right permissions in place first. But in this case, I know the applicant has been working hard with their staff and I appreciate that. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Director Dixon. Any other comments from board directors? Don't see any. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
Next item is 12.3. We have development variance permit 2020-20 to vary the maximum height and size requirements for an accessory building at 10146 Royalwood Boulevard in Electoral Area D. Again, there was some correspondence circulated by email, and Mr. Chair, I would just note that Director Dickey has indicated a wish to speak.
Thank you, Director Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In light of neighborhood comments, I would like to introduce an amendment to refer this back to staff.
Thank you. And is there a seconder on this item?
Dixon.
Thank you. And I'll call the question on referral.
Mr. Chair, sorry, I think just procedurally, we should provide the public with an opportunity for input just in case.
Very well. So will I ask Mr. Dickey then to just withdraw his motion and then introduce it perhaps after we complete the public hearing portion of this? Is that in order, or what's just looking to staff to indicate best way to move forward on this? I
think in this case, we can just go ahead. We have a motion on the floor and we can open it up to the public for further comments.
Comments, very good. So if there are members of the public who are present on the call, now would be the opportunity to speak to this item. And please indicate by raising your Zoom hand. And for a second time, and a third and final time, and I'll just double check, Ms. Riley, Ms. Kinnaman, nobody
on the line, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Okay, and now on referral, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next item is 12.4. We have development variance permit 2020-21 to reduce the required highway setback from 4.6 meters to 3.9 meters for the accessory building at 47840 Chilliwack Lake Road in Electoral Area E.
Okay, and once again, I guess to stay consistent, if there are any comments from the public on this item, now would be the opportunity. And we don't have any public still on the line, is that correct? I don't.
Ms. Riley, is there any?
We're just checking. I'm just checking in with our administrative staff here.
Thank you. For a first time,
We do have people on the line, Mr. Chair, but no one has indicated a desire to speak to this item.
Okay, second time, third and final time to speak to this item. Seeing none, so board's wishes. Need a mover and a seconder, please.
Chair Engar, I'll move it with some stipulations if I may, please.
I heard that you'll move it, and
It's asking for options, and then before I give an option, I'd like to discuss with staff if there's any feedback from neighbors and any issues with the outstanding enforcement bylaw. If not, I'm ready to move ahead with option one.
okay, so why don't we get option one? Let's see if we have a seconder. And I'm just a little bit confused. Give me one
Yeah, I
second.
just need to look and see what option one is. I'm seeing on the head sheet, the motion for,
Option one is to approve in the,
Yeah, all I
is
see
that
is.
motion to issue it, Director Engar?
That's
Yes.
what I- Yeah,
So I can confirm that the motion number one that Director Engar is seeing on page 283 of your agenda is the same motion that you're going to see on your head sheet, which is for the board to issue the DVP permit.
yes.
that's correct. Okay, do we have a seconder? Seconded by Director Stobart. Now, there was a question through to staff, I believe, from Director Engar on this item. Go ahead, Director Engar, you had a question.
Yes. Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm just wondering if there's any issues with the outstanding previous bylaw enforcement on this file, as well as any public feedback, negative, which would influence my decision.
Okay, Ms. Kenneman, I think any feedback that we would have received would have been circulated around to the board prior to the decision. But
Yes,
I'll-
that is correct, but we do have Mr. Daniluz, I believe we have Mr. Daniluz on the line. Let me just take a peek here. Yes, there he is. And perhaps he could address the outstanding bylaw enforcement issues for this property.
Thank you, Chair. There is an outstanding bylaw enforcement issue on the property that relates to works in and around a stream without a development permit. The owner's been working hard with staff to get the situation squared away. They've had environmental reports done and approvals by the province now to authorize the remediation. And from the perspective of staff, that process is going very well.
Thank you, Mr. Daniluz.
Very good. Then my support for the variance holds, and I approve I would like to have your support for option one.
Thank you. And the item has been moved and seconded. Is there any other questions from directors? Don't see any. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
12.5, we have development permit 2020-19 for the form and character of Phase 3 subdivision of Aquadel Crossing at 1885 Columbia Valley Road in Electoral Area H to permit the construction of a mix of ranchers, 2-story and 3-story single-family detached resort residential dwellings.
Thank you. And
Excellent move.
is this an opportunity, Ms. Riley, for the public to ask questions on this?
That's correct.
So I will just look to see if there are any comments from the public regarding this development permit.
At this point, there doesn't appear to be any.
Okay, I'll just call for a second time and a third and final time. And hearing no comments from the public, I heard Director Dixon move, and a seconder, please. It's seconded by Director Raymond, and discussion on the item.
Dixon, please.
Go ahead, Director Dixon.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Daniluz, I believe, just more for anyone that happens to be listening, just to, if you can elaborate a little bit on the covenants that will help ensure that the basements are more challenging to turn into suites, and as well as that the larger buildings will be placed only at the back of the development.
Mr. Daniluz, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, indeed, the development permit and also a restricted covenant registered on the property titles will allow these 3-story homes only on specified lots. These lots are relatively steeply sloped and they're quite suitable in the view of staff for 3-story homes. There's a concern in the community about the potential for these basements to be converted at a later date to suites. And as a part of the covenant that will be registered on these property titles, basements won't be permitted to have exterior exits. Access and egress will be through the home, not from an exterior door. And in our opinion, this significantly reduces their desirability for suites and which should reduce incidences of these basements being converted in the future.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from directors? Seeing none, all in favor, opposed if any, the item carries. Next item.
13.1, we have modification of the Glen Valley and Matsqui Trail Regional Parks operating and maintenance agreement with the city of Abbotsford. There's a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Lowen, seconded by Director Facio. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, opposed if any, the item carries. Next item.
Next is 14.1. We have letters of congratulations to the new MLAs.
Thank you.
Moved to Ross.
Moved by Director Ross and seconded by Director Clute. Any discussion? And Ms. Kenneman, I understand that there may be opportunity for us to meet in it's probably looking like a virtual setting with our new MLAs, some of which are probably more familiar with the FERD than others, but certainly welcome the opportunity to make them feel welcome as new MLAs, but also give them our list of infrastructure asks and items that we hope to be working very hard with them on achieving. But I understand staff are working to look at scheduling opportunities for that. And any other comments from board directors? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed if any, item carries. Next item.
14.2, we have the 2021 Job Creation Partnership Program grant application.
Thank you.
Move the motion.
That's moved by Director Pranger, seconded by Director Popov. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed if any, item carries. Very good program and hope we're successful on that. Next item.
14.3, we have the update on the source separation bylaw.
Any mover and a seconder?
Moved by Director Lowen.
Moved by Director Lowen and seconded by Director Robb. Any discussion?
Bales.
Okay, I heard Director Bales. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hope we can move this along a little bit. I'm hoping, especially in my Area C garbage, once it all gets settled out, that we can have a better source separation in Area C at least. There's been a bit of frustration that people have to take the recycling of styrofoam and things like that farther away. And I think the whole point is that people shouldn't be wasting gas going farther away than they have to. And it's better for one truck to move the recyclables and have a lot of different vehicles going farther away to take the items. So I think we need to get on board as soon as we can, even though I guess COVID slowed down a few things, but it's been a bit frustrating for some of my residents. So looking forward to moving it along as soon as we can.
Thank you, Director Bales. Director Hamilton, did you have a question or comment on this item? Nope, you're good.
Dixon.
Go ahead, Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, I suppose. I'm just a little bit curious, I certainly can understand the delay and do look forward to moving it along. Just what is the expectation with the haulers? Like, are they supposed to not be picking up organics, or for those that actually have garbage pickup? I'm just not quite sure sort of how that whole process works.
Ms. Kinnaman?
I see that Mr. Lilly has put his camera on, so I'd be happy to have him speak to that question.
Hi, good evening. Through the chair, the expectation is that the haulers are providing this service for the residents at this point. We've been communicating with the haulers, and they are well aware of what the bylaw is and what the expectation is. My understanding is not all of the haulers necessarily have adequate trucks yet at this point, but they are developing that capacity.
Thank you. And then if I may have a follow-up, Mr. Chair, is that all right?
Absolutely.
In the item on the agenda, they talked a little bit about penalties as last resort. And are we talking about penalizing individual homeowners or the haulers, or both? Or like, if we, I realize that's down the road, but just kind of curious about that.
Mr. Lilly?
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair again. The bylaw itself applies specifically to waste generators, i.e. those that have a business or a family or a multifamily complex or a resident. The fines that we would be looking at implementing would be relatively minimal, like $200 type thing. We can't go higher than $500, I understand, under our bylaw offense notice enforcement bylaw. So really it is about getting as much buy-in as we can through education and outreach. And we're hoping not to need that, stick at the end of it.
Thank you. Any other comments from directors?
Adamson.
Go ahead,
Adamson.
Mr. Adamson. Yep.
I think in Area B, I know for sure that the residents have accepted the organics. We gave them a bin almost 2 years ago, I think by now, and the garbage collection had to pick it up. So they haven't got one truck that does 3 things, but they have one truck that does 2, like the recycle and the garbage in one truck. And then you have another little truck follows and picks up the organics. And it's working really good. So I'm saying it's working good. That's it. Good.
Thank you, Director Adamson. Other comments from board directors? Director Engar, did you have a comment?
Yes, please, Chair. Just a quick thought. I know, for instance, in our area, we have a fairly small hauler. I don't know what their retail base is like as far as cash flow, but I'm assuming that the cost of a new truck is going to be challenging for some of the small guys. What kind of a timeline are we looking at, and what kind of grace period? Are there any mechanisms to make things easier for them? Thank you.
Ms. Kinnaman, through you to your staff.
Sure, I think Mr. Lilly can probably speak to the process thus far and how staff have been working with the industry and with haulers all along the way in the development of this bylaw.
Yeah, for sure. We have a really good working relationship with industry in general, and we have an active industry working group, and we meet on a regular basis and we discuss issues around capacity and any problems and reporting and that sort of stuff. With regards to grace periods, we've given haulers a significant grace period already. That was part of our pre-consultation, and then the consultation is part of the bylaw. And then this delay, if you will, is going to give them a bit even more of a grace period. We don't know necessarily when, we figure we can hit the go button again. I'm guessing it will be, several months from now. But there certainly is an expectation that people and the industry is abiding by this bylaw at this point.
Just a follow-up, if I may, Chair.
Go ahead.
And Mr. Lilly, have you heard any feedback from the smaller companies that say this is onerous for them, or what's the feedback you're hearing, please?
Certainly there are some smaller companies that do have challenges. I believe like we were following up with one in your area. They had a truck that was out of commission. And so they were down one truck and it didn't have the right compartments or something. The small companies need to get on board. And they're getting there. I think we with the leeway and the head time that we have been giving them, they knew this was coming, and by and large, they've been buying into it. We've not been hearing significant issues or problems that they say this is too onerous or that they can't abide by it. Most of them, well, all of them have implied to us that they can do this.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from directors? Certainly, this is an item obviously that I'm fairly familiar with, and having been a part of our industry working group, and just impressed by the way that staff engaged with the industry, both large and small, and through the Waste Management Association, being a part of a group in the past, and just the long lead time, the certainty that it provided a lot of the haulers in terms of what they had to do to plan, to move ahead, to be able to comply with our bylaws. Certainly, this is no surprise for any of our haulers, and I'll go on a limb and say it's no surprise to our residents either. In a lot of ways, I think what I was hearing from the public was that the public was a step ahead of government on this one, where there was an expectation that the public wanted to be able to source separate, and they wanted the organics, and they wanted some of the enhanced recycling. And so I think the public, this next step, I guess, or the opportunity to give a little bit more leeway is it's welcome, and I definitely agree with this staff approach in terms of using the fines as a last resort kind of mechanism to ensure compliance. But I also remain optimistic that the public is ahead on this one, and they realize the challenges, and they also realize the opportunity that lies in better source separation and reducing the amount of waste that we're generating. And so I'll definitely support the motion, and I think staff are definitely on the right track on this, and just commend their hard work on this item. So with that, I will, if there's any other comments from board directors, don't see any, we'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any, the item carries. Next item.
14.4 is the electoral area official community plans accelerated update strategy. There's a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Raymond and seconded by Director Dickey. Discussion on the item? I don't see any. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, if any, the item carries. Next item.
14.5 is the cannabis regulations in electoral areas update and consultation plan.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder on the item. It's moved
I'll
by
move.
Director Raymond, and then seconded by Director Adamson. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, opposed if any, the item carries. Next item.
14.6 is the Hemlock Valley Avalanche Assessment.
Move Bales.
Moved by Director Bales and seconded by Director Adamson. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, opposed if any, the item carries. Next item.
14.7, we have the updated Fraser Valley Regional District Water Conservation Plan.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Raymond and seconded by Director Facio. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Director Adamson, go ahead.
I want to say that Yale does not want meters or chlorine. That's all that matters. They don't want that. And so.
Okay. Thank you, Director Adamson. Any other comments from directors? Go ahead, Director Raymond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say thank you to staff for a very well put together document. I know they spent a lot of time working hard on it, and I just wanted to say thank you to them.
Thank you, Director Raymond. Definitely a lot of work put into this item, and it is an important one. Any other comments from board directors? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed if any. The item carries. Next item.
14.8, we have a temporary expanded service area application for Sasquatch Mountain Resort in electoral area C.
Thank you.
Moved, Bales.
Moved by Director Bales, seconded by
Indor.
Director Clute. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
14.9, we have public input and additional information regarding commercial gravel operation permit 2020-01 for Statler Resources, 12 kilometers Chehalis Forest Service Road in electoral area C. Motion for your consideration.
Thank you. And what's the board's wishes? A mover and a seconder. It's moved by Director Stobart, seconded by Director Dickey. Discussion on the item.
Through the chair, this is Director Bales.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to amend the motion on the agenda as follows.
Okay.
That the commercial gravel operation permit 2020-01 be amended to limit days of operation weekdays, Monday to Friday, exclusive of statutory holidays, during the months of March through November each year.
Okay. Is there a seconder to the motion, to the amendment?
I'll second it.
Yeah, it's seconded by Director Adamson. Before I open the floor for discussion on this, I just want Ms. Kinnaman, statutorily, I just want to check in with staff. Are we crossing any lines here in terms of our ability or our requirement to issue this permit, and then other legislation that this might fall under?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to turn this over to Mr. Daniluz because I know he's been working quite closely both with the Ministry of Mines, with the proponent, as well as Director Bales on this item, and wonder if he would like to comment on the feasibility of that amendment that has been proposed.
Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. FBRD's commercial gravel operations bylaw gives the board an opportunity to insert site-specific conditions into these permits, so long as the conditions relate to compliance with the bylaw. And I believe Director Bales' concern is that this area receives, Chehalis Forest Service Road area receives fairly intensive recreational use, and she's concerned about land use conflicts between the operation of the gravel pit and recreational activity on the surrounding Crown land base. And her suggestion to limit hours of operation to minimize those noise and dust conflicts is in keeping with the provisions of the bylaw. In my opinion, there's no conflict with senior legislation or provincial legislation in Mines Act's permit. We've got a clear authority to impose these kinds of conditions, and if conditions in the mines permit differ, then clearly the more onerous provisions apply, unless there's a direct collision between the provisions that would prevent the mine operator from satisfying both, if you follow me.
Yep.
So long as the operator can satisfy both the regional district's provisions and the Ministry of Mines, there's no conflict and therefore no problem with this kind of provision and conflicting with Ministry of Mines regulations.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Daniluz, or Mr. Daniluz. Thank you. And any other comments, Director Lowen, on the amendment?
Yes, thank you. Did I understand Mr. Daniluz correctly in that he was suggesting that this amendment would be a what's the right term, a runaround, coming from the other end to avoid conflict between recreational users and the gravel industry on weekends. And end run is the word I was trying to look for, the term. So is that the rationale for this amendment, to avoid conflict on weekends?
That's what I heard. I didn't hear your terminology. I think it just on the question of enforceability and the question of if the amendment was in order and didn't cross any legislative kind of boundaries. But I believe the intent definitely was to avoid that conflict and was done in response to public feedback on this item.
Okay, well, the reason I'm asking is that a number of years ago, we had a gravel extraction application on Ross Road in Abbotsford, and council used, we didn't want the trucks there. There was a school nearby, but the arguments we used were not specific to our concerns. They weren't bona fide reasons. And it went to a court, an appeal court, and they overturned it. And we had to go back to the drawing board, as a council, and revisit our rationale and restate it. And we had to be careful how we worded our arguments. So I would think that the gravel company may very well challenge this in a court. And if they see what the real reason is, that they want to avoid conflict, and it doesn't address the conflict in their arguments, I see the court throwing this out.
Thank you, Director Lowen, for your comments. Director Dickey, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and further to Director Lowen's comments. I think the board perhaps should be cautious about trying to impose regulations on Forest Service roads, as they do not fall under FERD jurisdiction. They are provincial roads. However, our staff feel that the permit, if it were to include these provisions, would be defendable. So I will support the amendment, but I do think that we should be cautious about moving forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you. And other comments from board directors?
Davidson?
Go ahead, Director Davidson.
Just speaking in support of the amendment, the permit, the draft permit before us for consideration already has July and August blocked out for weekend traffic. This is a case of just extending that window to better reflect the fact that it's going to be active beyond those months as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Davidson. Any other comments from directors?
Bales.
Go ahead, Director Bales.
Oh, I'd just like to say this is a rather unusual pit operation in that the road goes straight through the middle of it, and there are a lot of people that use the access through it. So I don't know if I want to say too much more about that, but I do know that it gets used a lot during any sunny day from first of spring, or the first sunny day in spring till the fall. So I'm just looking at it as a different kind of a pit scenario, where most pits have the road on the outside of the gravel pit. This one has a road going straight through, and I guess that's all I want to say right now.
Thank you, Director Bales. Director Stobart, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll probably vote in favor of the amendment as well, but I do have issues. I think it was easily defensible for July and August, when we do have a lot of tourist traffic up there, a lot of recreational use, but for an industrial road, I'm especially with the small amount of traffic that's on there the other months of the year, I do see some possible complications. But again, at this time, I will support the amendment.
Thank you. Any other comments from board directors? Don't see any. And thank you, staff, for the clarification and the substantiation around the reasons why, and in fact that we are being responsive to to concerns that have been raised throughout the process. So I'll call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The motion or the amendment carries. And a question, call the question on the motion as amended. All in favor? Opposed, if any? And the motion as amended carries. Next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving down to item 16, we have a number of reports from committee items for information. 16.1, we have the FVRD Regional Growth Strategy ties to electoral areas. Happy to answer any questions if the board has them.
Thank you. And any questions on the information item? Director Hamilton?
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, it's more of a comment than a question. And I noticed when I read the projected population growth, the increase in the age of the population, particularly seniors, increasing from 17% to 25% of the total population over the next 20 years, with approximately 100,000 residents by 2041 over the age of 65. So my point is, I would really, with this demographic shift, which will impact healthcare services, municipal service, housing demands, transit, etc., I really feel that we need to be proactive rather than reactive at a later date to being mindful of this demographic shift over the next few years. It's just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hamilton. Good, good comments. Any other questions or comments from board directors on the item? Seeing none, let's move to the next item, please.
16.2, we have the Regional and Community Parks and Trails Summer Usage 2020. Again, we have staff that can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Questions on this item? Don't see any. Next item.
16.3, we have the Housing Needs Assessment Update.
Thank you. And any questions from board directors on this item? Just perhaps a reference back to our presenter at the beginning of this board meeting, Dr. Dow. These are the types of reports and information generated by local governments that I think may be of use to Dr. Dow's organization, and may help the public visualize and understand some of the challenges around housing needs across the region. Any other questions from directors?
Dixon.
Go ahead, Director Dixon.
I have to back up one because this is about well, they're both together, but just I really was pretty impressed with the regional and community parks, just the tracking the usage, to be able to see that people like coming out to these parks. So I thought that was well done. Anyway, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, definitely. And then certainly with the reality of a pandemic and being encouraged to be outside in a safe and open spaces, probably lent itself to the great outdoors. No.
Bales?
Go ahead, Director Bales, and you're on.
I just wondered, along with the housing needs, if we can start to, if there's any possibility to look into areas where people can go that are homeless. Right now, there's a lot of people that just park on the side of the road, or they camp where they're not supposed to. And if we can identify any areas, that would be of interest to me, because no matter what, staff is quite often fielding a lot of calls, although a lot of the time it's provincial. And I think we need to work with the province on these kind of issues. But
yeah, absolutely, Director Bales, and I think in some of our homelessness counts that staff identify some of the resources and facilities available in our region, and but your point is well taken in terms of liaising with the province in particular around addressing homelessness and homeless camps in some of the more rural areas. I know Director Angar is very in tune with that issue up in the Chilliwack River Valley, as is Director Dixon. And certainly in all of our areas, no one is immune from some of the challenges that people who are experiencing homelessness are facing. But what the difference is that often our electoral areas don't have the same kind of resources that the municipalities would have the benefit of obtaining through partnerships with BC Housing and the like, Fraser Health. So yes, this is definitely one I anticipate will continue to be on the radar, and how we're going to support regional districts, in particular electoral areas, with challenges around homelessness and homeless camps. Any other comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, next item.
17.1, just introducing an item of correspondence from the Fraser Valley Basin Council, Fraser Valley update, November 2020. It's a whole lot of Fraser Valleys in there.
A lot of Fraser Valleys. Okay, and any questions on this item? I don't see any. Next item.
Reports by directors, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and board directors, now would be your opportunity, and I'll recognize Director Raymond. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the staff at the rec center out at Hope for all the hard work they've been putting in to try and keep that facility open and keep our staff safe and keep the public safe as well. Not been an easy task for them, and they've done some marvelous work out there, and I just wanted to let the board know and say thank you to them.
Great, thank you, Director Raymond, and I know Ms. Kinnaman, you'll pass along our deep gratitude. Not an easy thing to be able to interpret and adhere to the changing landscape when it comes to public health orders, in particular how they affect group health activity, indoor recreation activity. So very good work there. Director Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say that Mr. Danilus and his staff presented our first electronic public hearing over the past month, and the meeting went flawlessly. They did a wonderful job, and just wanted to thank them all.
Great, thank you, Director Dickey, and thank you, Mr. Danilus and your team. Any other Director Hamilton, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask Director Fascio if the Christmas display along the boardwalk is open with the new health authority restrictions.
Oh, and Director Fascio, we've got you on mute there.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
All I can report at the moment is that the portion that Tourism Harrison is doing is they were still waiting for a reply back from Fraser Health after the restrictions came in some time ago. As far as the synthetic skating rink that was enlarged this year by the village, that will not open due to the restrictions and trying to keep people safe. So that will definitely not be moving ahead. But as of today, I've yet to hear from Tourism Harrison if I'm guessing with the restrictions that have come in regards to no gatherings and people moving around, that it may be a low key that they may do for this year. The village has continued with its regular lighting of the trees. That's still there. But on your question, at the moment, it's on hold till they hear from Fraser Health, but I'm anticipating it's going to be a low-key one this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other reports from board directors? I don't see any. So next item.
Next item is item 20, which is our public question period for items relevant to the agenda. As we have been practicing, email submissions could be made to info@fvrd.ca prior to 1 p.m. on November the 23rd. Also, members of the public were encouraged to attend this meeting by Zoom, and I'm just going to check with staff. We do still have one member on the line. I'm not sure if they wish to speak, so we'll just ask them if they would like to unmute themselves and pose any question that they have relevant to the agenda.
Thank you. And just look if our member of the
See
public.
any hands raised?
No. One more opportunity here.
No. So
One final time. Nope. Okay.
Okay.
Next item.
Okay, so looking for a resolution to close the meeting, Mr. Chair.
It's moved by Director Fascio, seconded by Director Mercer. All in favor, opposed if any item carries, and just give you an opportunity to reset here.